Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of It's Time We Talk. So, I recently put out a part one covering the first three rounds of Roland Garros this year, and now we are at the semi-final stage for both the men's and women's draw. And I believed it was time for us to do this again and talk about what's going on and preview these semi-final matchups that are going to be happening. Right now it's Wednesday at the time of recording. They're going to be happening Thursday, June 4th, and Friday, June 5th. And then seeing if my predictions work out. We'll also be seeing if I can predict the final and who will take home both the men's and women's Roland Garros title, who will win their first ever Grand Slam title. And, you know, with this tournament, um, I've absolutely loved it. It has easily been the most unpredictable and exciting tournament that I have watched on both the men's and the women's sides. This is the first time the first time in 5 years, that the men's and women's draw will produce a first-time Grand Slam champion. Last time was the 2021 U.S. Open when Daniil Medvedev and Emma Raducanu won their first Grand Slam titles. With no Sinner and Djokovic left in the field, it seems like the tournament on the men's side could belong to anybody. But with the crazy events of today and Arina Sabalenka being eliminated in the quarterfinals on the women's side, there's only one top 10 seed left, and who knows? I mean, it could be anyone. We've seen such an unpredictable tournament that it really is going to be interesting to see what happens between now and Saturday for the women and now and Sunday for the men. Who takes home the title for both sides? So yeah, I'm going to be previewing both semifinals for the men's and the women's draws, giving my insight, giving a little bit more information for those of you who may not be familiar with the people in the semifinal draws, and predicting who I think is going to win the semifinal and who I think is going to win both finals. So let's just get right into it. So starting off on the women's side, we have Mira Andreeva, who is going up against Marta, who is the number 8 player in the world, on the women's side, facing up against Marta Kostyuk. I believe I'm saying that right. A lot of tough last names to pronounce, so please bear with me. So Marta Kostyuk, of course, a 4th round win against Iga Swiatek, the number 3 player in the tournament, I believe the number 3 player in the world. Also won in the quarterfinals against Elina Svitolina. So some impressive victories for Kostyuk, and she has been incredible on clay this season. Did my research into her record beforehand, and she's 11-0 on clay, won a WTA 250, and won the WTA 1000 in Madrid. So 11-0, and now she's won 5 more, making her 16-0 going into the semifinals. So she's going to be a tough opponent for Mira Andreeva. Andreeva herself beat Marie Buskova in the 3rd round, the number 27 seed. Beat Jill Teichmann, who is going to be a top 100 player once the new rankings come out. And in the quarterfinals, beat the 18 seed Sorana Sistea. So some impressive wins for Andreeva too. She had a pretty tough draw, a pretty tough road to the semifinals, and she's passed it with flying colors. She's been 15-3 on clay, now 18-3, with a WTA 500 win in Austria. So between these two, I think this is definitely, in my opinion, the matchup that I'm anticipating more. I'm very excited to see how these two match up. I couldn't find that much history between. I believe one of Andreeva's losses was in Madrid on the clay this season. Was in Madrid against Marta Kostyuk. So we'll we'll see if Andreeva has learned from that matchup. Like I said, she's already played her on clay. Is Kostyuk going to get the best of her again, or is Andreeva going to come prepared this time? Andreeva is 19 and has really impressed with the maturity that she shows and how well she's played in Grand Slams up to this date. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how Andreeva is able to handle the situation. This is the farthest that any of these women have made it in a Grand Slam, so it's not like one of these have been here before. Neither of them have ever been to a Grand Slam semifinals before. So we'll see. I mean, it'll be about who's got the minerals on that day. Who's going to come more prepared. Personally, I like Mira Andreeva for this match. I think she is insanely talented, and even though she has so much potential, I feel like she's realized a lot of that potential already. And like I said, nothing against Kostyuk. She has been incredible on clay. She hasn't lost this year. But I just like the way that Andreeva is playing. She's playing a lot more straightforward games, and she's been far too much for her opponents to handle going into the semifinal matchup. So, in my opinion, I'm going to go for Mira Andreeva in this one. Going on to the second women's semifinal, we've got Diana Schneider, the number 25 seed from Russia, an NC State product. She will be going up against Maya Hawlinski. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I went on the WTA website and press the button for her to pronounce her name at least 4 or 5 times just to make sure that I got it. Probably still didn't get it. But starting off with Schneider, as I said, an NC State product. She's beaten Madison Keys. And, of course, the big win was in the quarterfinals against Aryna Sabalenka, the number 1 player in the world. And it looked like Sabalenka was going to be too much for Schneider at the beginning of the match. But it seemed like in that second set, something happened. Schneider took care of business, won 6 games in a row in that third set to blank Sabalenka. So she was absolutely lights out in the second half of that second set and all throughout that third set. So she's 11-6 this season, 5-4 on the clay going into this tournament. She really struggled on clay coming into Roland Garros. So definitely a surprise to see her this far. She's obviously very talented, but it wasn't a given that she would make it this far. How well she played against Madison Keys, especially in that third. She's had something about Schneider in third sets. She's just been so good. And like I said, a big win against Maddie Keys in the 4th round. Aryna Sabalenka, so she's battle-tested. She's faced 2 Grand Slam winners already, beat them both. So, you never know. Schneider could be someone that could win. Like I said, it could be any one of these 4 women. Moving on to Maya Hawlinska, excuse me, the woman from Poland. She is 10-5 on clay this season. With she's only been playing really on the Challenger this season, so a win at a 125 event, the Oeiras Open, has not played on a WTA Tour event to my knowledge. So she was definitely somebody who came into this tournament with absolutely no expectations. The fact that she qualified and the fact that she got in was incredibly impressive. And, if she would have lost in the first round, I don't think her nor her team or anybody would have really had much to say about it. Because Hawlinska is, not a very consistent player, especially on the clay. I mean, she's done well on the Challenger Tour, but like I said, she hadn't played a single match on the WTA Tour. So she beat Elise Mertens in the second round, the number 23 ranked player, or the number 23 seeded player, excuse me. Diane Parry in the fourth round, who was somebody to look for, somebody who a lot of people thought may really make a case for herself, and she did play well, Diane Parry, but Haulinska took care of her, and then she also took care of Anna Kolisnik, well, Anna Kolisnkaya. I believe I said that right. The 22 seed. So she again has played some good opponents, and like I said, she's a challenger player, and nothing against her, but like I said, I don't think anybody really thought much of it when she got in. So the fact that she's made it this far is incredibly impressive. I've liked the limited games that I've seen from her. I've liked what I've seen. She's immensely talented, with full of potential, and you know, I'm hoping that this incredible performance at Roland Garros is just a prerequisite to her incredible success in the future. So with this one, I think I am going to favor Diana Schneider. She, like I said, is just coming off of a win against the best player in the world. I think that momentum, that adrenaline is still going to be pumping. She's going to be, incredibly confident in herself and her abilities, and I think she should. I think, she's played so well to this point, and while I have immense respect for Haulinska and the performance that she's put up so far, I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it will be close, but we'll see what ends up happening. Moving on to the men's draw. Our first matchup, we have Jakub Menšik from Czechia against Alexander Zverev, the number 2 seed and the number 3 player in the world. So Menšik coming into this match, 3-3 on clay. He has struggled this season on clay. One of those losses was to Zverev in Madrid, which, like I said, that could be big. Menšik, has he learned from the unfortunate loss to Zverev? Does Zverev have his number? Those are things that'll be very interesting. But one thing that cannot be disputed is Menšik has had an incredibly impressive run to the semifinal. And even if he does fall to Zverev in the semifinals, he cannot be disappointed with his performance. He beat, in the third round, Alex de Minaur, somebody who, was probably hoping that he would get to at least the fourth round of the quarterfinals. He beat Alexander Rublev in the next round, the number 11 seed. And then he also beat in the quarterfinals João Fonseca, who, while being a wonder kid at 19, who probably didn't expect to go that far, Fonseca did beat Djokovic in the fourth round, or in the third round, I believe. And, he was riding an insane wave of momentum, and it would have been fairly reasonable for Menšik to come across that match and, fall to somebody who had that much momentum behind them and, was really playing some really good tennis. But Menšik kept his cool, stayed himself, and, he has just played some incredible tennis, and I think his matchup against Alexander Zverev, who, so many people have talked about him already. He is the consensus favorite to win on the men's draw, the number 2 seed. He's had this reputation of always being a bridesmaid, never being the bride, as in, he's always been around the top 5, the top 3, but because of Djokovic and now Sinner and Alcaraz, it's been tough for him to win that elusive first Grand Slam, and this is such a big opportunity, and there's so much pressure on him because with all these guys, you don't know if you're going to get that opportunity again because of how good Sinner and Alcaraz are. So with Zverev, he is 13-4 on clay this season. Of course, I mentioned before he has beaten Menšik on clay in Madrid. So we'll see if that has an effect on both of these guys. I assume that it will. Um, for him, I said 13-4 on the clay, a couple losses to Sinner in some big games, but he is in a great spot. He's only dropped one set on his way to the semifinals to Quentin Halys. Excuse me. Defeated Rafa Hodar in the quarterfinals to make it here to the semifinals. Yeah, I think Zverev is playing incredibly good and consistent tennis right now, and usually what stopped him is running into Djokovic or Alcaraz or Sinner. You look at the Australian Open and his loss to Alcaraz under, I'd say, a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Interesting circumstances. Maybe Zverev probably should have won that marathon effort, but regardless, Zverev has found himself in a great position to win his first career Grand Slam, and I don't think that he should take Menchik lightly. Obviously, he's beat him already this season on clay, as I've said numerous times already, but I think Menchik is such a wild card in this. He is a great player and someone who only at the age of 20 has accomplished so much, and he has immense potential, and there's no reason why he can't realize that potential with his first career Grand Slam victory. So I'm going to predict Zverev in this because I feel like I said, he has to win this. Because if he doesn't, I mean, I know Alcaraz has already pulled out of Wimbledon, but can you just go in there expecting that Sinner is going to lose early again and you won't have to run into him? So for Zverev, like I said, he's going to go to sleep tonight and on Thursday knowing that he needs to beat Menchik, and Menchik can sort of go to sleep knowing, I wasn't expected to make it this far. It's cool, but he can play a little bit more relaxed, I think. Even though I know that he definitely wants to win it. So, like I said, my prediction is Zverev for the first semifinal win. Second matchup, we've got the Italian matchup of Matteo Arnaldi against Flavio Cobolli. Cobolli, the number 10 player, the number 10 seed in this tournament. If I said to you before the draw came out that we would have two Italians in the semifinals, I don't think Arnaldi nor Cobolli would be the two guys that you would predict. You'd probably predict Sinner and Musetti. And Musetti did have to withdraw due to injury, which was unfortunate because I would have loved to see him in this tournament, considering how well all the Italians besides Sinner have done. But Arnaldi is one of the most interesting stories in this entire tournament. He lost in qualifying, was a lucky loser when Jack Draper had to withdraw due to injury. So he filled in for Jack Draper, and he has really, he's 3-6 on the clay on the tour this season with a good win against De Minaur, but other than that, take away that, you're 2-6 against everybody else. So, not again. Didn't even qualify for this. Came in as a lucky loser, and the fact that he's made it this far. And I'm gonna read to you some of his notable wins, and you're gonna think to yourself, "My goodness, what a performance from Arnaldi!" He beat Talon Griekspoor, the number 29 seed, in the first round. Beat Stefanos Tsitsipas. Known as he's had a long and successful career on the tour. He beat Francis Tiafoe in an absolutely marathon effort, one of the best matches that I've watched in this tournament, which is saying something considering the quality of tennis we've had and the amount of upsets. It's up there with João Fonseca versus Novak Djokovic, but I would say, a big win against Francis Tiafoe, the 19 seed, and then in the quarterfinals, was looking good against Matteo Berrettini, and then Berrettini had to withdraw in the middle of he had to retire, excuse me. So he got here. I'd still say he's very much deserved this spot. He, like I said, 3-6. you never could have guessed Arnaldi in the semifinals. It is such a big accomplishment for him. Just he's played incredibly, and nobody could have. I don't even think his team saw this coming. I don't even think Arnaldi himself, despite the confidence that he may have in himself, I don't think he saw this coming. So I feel great for Arnaldi. I think he's such a good player, and he showed, I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think this is a sign of things to come for Arnaldi. I could be wrong about that, but we will see. And then his opponent, Flavio Caboli, the 10 seed, 9-5 on clay, made it to the final of the ATP 500 in Munich on clay, and lost to Ben Shelton, who was the 5 seed and is I believe a top 6 player in the world. I want to say a top 6 player in the world. So, can't be too mad about that. 9-5 on clay. He has beaten some very good competition as well. He beat Lerner Tien in the third round, who's been playing some great tennis and has really opened some eyes as of late. Zachary Svaja, he beat him in the fourth round, and then in the quarterfinals, after being down a set, he came back and won the next 3 against Felix Auger-Aliassime, a guy who I really had a lot of expectation for with Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, Fritz, Medvedev, Bublik, with all those guys out pretty early. I would have loved to see Felix in the semifinals. I think he's such an interesting player, and I just love watching him play. But Caboli 100% deserved the victory against him. So between Caboli and Arnaldi, I know this is going to maybe be dumb, maybe be boring, but I'm going to go with Caboli in this one to beat Arnaldi. I think this is where the Cinderella story ends for Arnaldi. I've picked all pretty much the favorites, which, if you're betting or anything, don't take anything from me. That might be wrong. But, yeah, so going back to the women's draw, now I predicted the final for both sides. So my predicted final for both sides is Mira Andreeva versus Diana Schneider. So a battle of 2 incredibly good Russian tennis players in the final, and I'm picking Mira Andreeva to win Roland Garros on the women's side. As I said before, she is so talented, so much potential, and it would not shock me in the slightest to see her realize that potential with a maiden Grand Slam at Roland Garros. She is a phenomenal, phenomenal player. I'm going to go with her to beat Diana Schneider. And on the men's side, I'm going to go with Alexander Zverev to realize his potential and realize that first Grand Slam, just like Andreeva. Going with the favorites, but I just think Zverev is so good, and he is so underrated, in my opinion. But, he's never gotten the credit that I think he deserves because of how difficult it's been to win a Grand Slam on the men's side. Not to say it's not difficult in the women's, but since 2022, or something like that, it's been, since 2022, 2023, it's been Djokovic, Sinner, Alcaraz, and that's it. So, Zverev, I think it'll be a great accomplishment for him to win his first Roland Garros against Flavio Caboli. I think Caboli's going to play well. Caboli definitely showed that the elements don't bother him, so whether the match is played with the roof open or the roof closed, he's going to come to play. But I do like Zverev to win his first Grand Slam at Roland Garros this year. So those are my predictions. Andreeva and Zverev to win Roland Garros for the women and for the men. Let me know what you think. Am I speaking sense? Am I speaking nonsense? Like I said, I have enjoyed getting to preview and run through each semi-finalist. I will be making a review when the tournament is over, talking about the finals and the tournament as a whole, so I'm very, very excited for that. Thank you all for watching. Leave a like. Please subscribe to Real Rap Entertainment. Follow us on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram, chris.at.rw. Follow me on TikTok. It's Time We Talk Podcast. Yeah, and of course, RealRapEntertainment.com. Read some of our amazing articles. So until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time.